Most people think explaining themselves earns respect. It does the opposite. Think about this. The more you explain your decisions, the more you justify your choices, the more you defend yourself, the less seriously people take you. They interrupt you. They question you. They push your boundaries. And you don't understand why? Because you're being reasonable. You're trying to help them understand. You're being considerate. You're giving them context. But something still feels off. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Explaining yourself signals uncertainty. In social psychology, people don't judge confidence by words. They judge it by how little you feel the need to defend yourself. When you over-explain, the brain of the listener hears, "I'm not fully sure this decision stands on its own." And subconsciously, they downgrade your authority. It doesn't matter if you're right. It doesn't matter if your reasons are valid. The act of justification itself changes how they see you. Think about the last time someone made you wait for an answer. Not because they were rude, but because they didn't feel the need to respond immediately. You probably respected that. Now think about the last time someone rushed to explain themselves, stumbling over their words, desperate to be understood. You probably felt uncomfortable. That discomfort, that's status recalibrating in real time. There's a concept in psychology called status signaling. High status individuals state decisions, set boundaries, move on. Low status individuals justify, clarify, seek approval. Not because they're weak, but because they're afraid of being misunderstood. And here's the key. Respect is assigned before explanations are processed. By the time you're explaining, the judgment has already happened. Your tone, your posture, your hesitation, these communicate authority or the lack of it in the first 3 seconds. Everything after that is just damage control. There's a reason CEOs don't explain their vacations. Politicians don't justify their schedules. Doctors don't over-clarify their diagnoses. They've learned something most people haven't. The moment you defend a decision, you invite negotiation. And once something is negotiable, it's no longer a boundary. It's a suggestion. And watch how this plays out in real life. Example 1. Declining an invitation. You say, "Sorry, I can't make it because I have a lot going on and I didn't sleep well and my schedule's been crazy and I really wish I could, but..." Compare that to, "I won't be able to make it." Same outcome, very different signal. One sounds like a request, the other sounds like a decision. People don't argue with decisions. They argue with insecurity. Example 2. At work. Your coworker asks why you didn't respond to their message immediately. You could say, "Oh, sorry, I was in back-to-back meetings, and then I had to finish this report and my phone died." Or you could say, "I got to it when I could." Notice the difference. The first one hands them a list of things to critique. The second one doesn't. Example 3. Setting a personal boundary. Someone asks you to do something you don't want to do. You say, "I don't think I can, because honestly, I've been really overwhelmed lately, and I just need some time for myself, and I hope you understand." Or, "That doesn't work for me." The first invites, "But it'll only take an hour. You can't make an exception. I thought we were close." The second, silence, because there's nothing to negotiate. The more you explain yourself, the more people test you, the more they feel entitled to question you, the more they believe access to you is negotiable. That's why some people are constantly challenged while others are rarely questioned. It's not charisma. It's not luck. It's not even likability. It's behavioral consistency. When you train people that your no requires a dissertation, they'll always expect one. And when you don't provide it, they'll feel confused, even offended. But here's what most people miss. That confusion is them adjusting to your new standard, not you doing something wrong. Think about the people in your life who command respect. Not fear, not submission, just quiet respect. You don't question their choices. You don't push their boundaries. You don't demand explanations. Why? Because they never taught you that you could. Here's the shift you need to make. You don't need to sound convincing. You need to sound settled, calm, brief, final. Silence after a statement is not awkward, it's authoritative. When you stop explaining, people fill the silence with respect, not because they agree with you, not because they understand you, but because you're not asking them to. And that, psychologically, signals that you don't need their permission, which is the foundation of every boundary, every decision, every moment of self-respect. Most people are terrified of being misunderstood, so they talk and talk and talk until the person they're talking to stops listening to the words and starts listening to the need behind them. The need to be validated, the need to be approved, the need to be seen as reasonable. But respect doesn't come from being reasonable. It comes from being immovable. Use this rule. Explain only when someone has earned the explanation. Not everyone deserves access to your reasoning. If someone genuinely seeks understanding, explain. If they're testing you, stop talking. Here's how to tell the difference. Genuine curiosity sounds like, I'd love to understand your thinking on this. Can you help me see your perspective? What made you decide that? Testing sounds like, really, why not? That doesn't make sense. I don't see why you can't just... One invites dialogue, the other invites defense, and you are under no obligation to defend yourself to someone who hasn't earned that level of access. So what do you do instead? You pause, you let the silence sit. You wait for them to either respect your boundary or reveal that they never intended to, and both outcomes give you information. One tells you the relationship is healthy, the other tells you where the work needs to happen. Now you might be thinking, but won't people think I'm rude? Maybe. The ones who are used to you over-explaining will be surprised. But rudeness and boundaries are not the same thing. Rudeness dismisses, boundaries protect. You can say no with warmth. You can decline with kindness. You can set limits without cruelty. But you cannot do any of those things while simultaneously apologizing for them. Won't this hurt my relationships? Only the ones that were built on your compliance. Real relationships don't require you to justify your existence. They allow space. They respect autonomy. They don't collapse the moment you stop performing. What if I'm wrong? Then you'll learn. But over-explaining won't protect you from being wrong. It just makes you look uncertain while still being wrong. Better to be clear and incorrect than muddled and incorrect. At least one of those allows you to course correct with dignity. This isn't just about saying less. It's about reclaiming something deeper. The belief that your decisions are valid simply because you made them. Not because you have a PhD in justification, not because you've convinced everyone around you, but because you are the architect of your own life, and no one else is entitled to the blueprints. We live in a culture that demands transparency, that treats privacy as suspicion, that confuses boundaries with secrecy. But you are not required to be an open book just because someone wants to read you. Some chapters are not for public consumption. Some decisions are not up for debate. Some parts of you are allowed to remain uncommented on, unexplained, and entirely yours. The people who respect that, keep them close. The people who don't, let them wonder. Because the moment you stop explaining yourself is the moment you start teaching people how you expect to be treated. And that lesson, delivered calmly, consistently, without apology, is one of the most powerful things you can do. The fastest way to change how people treat you is not saying more. It's knowing when to stop. You don't owe everyone an explanation. You don't owe everyone your reasoning. You don't owe everyone access to your inner world. What you owe yourself is the dignity of your own decisions, the confidence of your own boundaries, and the quiet, steady knowledge that you are enough without the defense, without the justification, without the performance. If this made sense, the next video will show you how silence alone changes social power, and why the most respected people you know are often the ones who say the least. Silence is not weakness, it's control.